Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a place where stories are told not for you to remember, but so that your mind can rest. When night falls, many of us feel that the body is tired, yet the thoughts remain awake. And it is precisely in that moment that slow, ancient stories that breathe with a sense of time longer than a human life, become a gentle bridge guiding you towards sleep. In today's video, we will step together into ancient Egypt, a civilization that endured for more than 3,000 years, where people believed that death was not an end, but simply another doorway. Through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, Egypt is not only history, but a symbol of the human unconscious pyramids, like dreams made of stone rituals, like humanity's way of learning to make peace with its own finitude. Stories for Sleep was created for moments like this, when you do not need to understand everything, when you do not need to stay awake until the end of the video. You only need to listen, allow the rhythm of the narration to carry you, and if sleep arrives at any moment, that is perfectly fine. If you enjoy gentle stories that help you fall asleep, don't forget to subscribe to the Stories for Sleep channel and turn on notifications. Each subscription is an invitation for us to continue telling many more dreams. And now, let yourself soften and let us begin. Wind blime, as night deepens and sounds slowly fade away, perhaps you, too, are searching for a place where your mind can rest, not through absolute emptiness, but through a slow-flowing current of stories that are deep enough, distant enough, that consciousness no longer needs to cling to familiar worries. For many restless nights, the problem does not lie in the body, but in a mind that refuses to let go. It still wants to understand, to control, to conclude. And it is precisely then that ancient stories where time moves more slowly become a natural bridge into sleep. Ancient Egypt is such a place. A civilization that lasted more than 3,000 years, not only through stone and sand, but through the belief that death was not an ending. There, pyramids were built not to display power, but to prepare for eternity. Bodies were preserved not out of fear of disappearance, but from the belief that the soul needed a home to return to. Through the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, these symbols are not merely historical artifacts, but mirrors, reflecting humanity's deepest longing to transcend the limits of conscious life. In this video, you do not need to remember dates, dynasties, or the names of pharaohs. The value of this journey does not lie in knowledge, but in sensation, the feeling of entering a world where time does not rush, where death is spoken of with calm acceptance, where colors, music, and rituals all serve to soothe the soul. Every fascinating truth about ancient Egypt here is told not to awaken you further, but to give the unconscious a place to anchor itself so that consciousness may rest. Think of this as a guided dream, from silent pyramids beneath star-filled skies to love poems written thousands of years ago, from gods with animal forms to the deeply human rhythms of ancient lives. If you allow yourself to drift with this narration, you may not hear it all. And that is perfectly fine, because sometimes falling asleep in the middle of a beautiful story is the gentlest gift the night can offer. Part 1. Introduction. Egypt, the civilization that refused to disappear. When we think of ancient Egypt, the first thing that often arises in the mind is not a date, but a feeling. A strange feeling, both distant and familiar. As though this civilization never truly left the world, but simply stepped back within the flow of time far enough to become legend, yet never far enough to be forgotten. Ancient Egypt endured for more than 3,000 years, a span so long that most other civilizations barely had time to emerge before disappearing. And yet Egypt remained quietly, persistently constructing monumental works that even today leave modern humans standing before them with a profound sense of smallness. The pyramids are not merely stone, they are condensed willpower, a longing to transcend the limits of human life. In Egypt, the king was not merely a ruler, the pharaoh was a living god, a bridge between humanity and the cosmos. When a king ascended the throne, it was not simply a transfer of power, but a reordering of the sacred balance. And when a king died, it was not considered an end, but a carefully prepared transition. Death was not something to fear. It was a problem to be designed with care so the soul could continue its journey. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, ancient civilizations like Egypt left behind not only physical remains, but deep imprints within the collective unconscious of humanity. Pyramids, mummies, animal-headed gods, these are not merely products of ancient imagination. They are symbols reflecting humanity's enduring preoccupation with time, death, and immortality. Jung suggested that modern humans still dream very ancient dreams, and Egypt is one of those dreams turned into stone. Our journey into the world of ancient Egypt is not a hurried tour. It is more like entering a long dream, where everything unfolds more slowly, from pyramids standing silent beneath the stars, to sealed burial chambers where mummies rest with amulets and prayers. From gods who govern the Nile, the sky, and death to the constellations, the Egyptians believed souls would travel through on their way to immortality. What is remarkable is that the deeper we go into Egypt, the less fear we feel. Death here is not dark. It has order. It has ritual. It has careful preparation. And that brings a strange yet comforting sensation. The sense that everything has its place, even endings. For the human mind, especially before sleep, few things are more reassuring than this. The voice that tells Egypt's story does not need drama. It needs to be low, slow, like wind moving across the desert at night, like moonlight resting on ancient stone. As you listen, you do not need to picture every detail precisely. Simply let the images drift through your mind, like ancient symbols gently awakening something deep within you. A part that once believed time was not an enemy, but a quiet companion. And if as you listen your eyelids grow heavy, if pyramids, gods, and stars begin to blend into a vague sensation, then that is exactly how ancient Egypt has existed for thousands of years, not needing to be fully understood, only to be felt. This journey has only just begun, and you do not need to walk it in full wakefulness. Just listen and allow the ancient dream to guide you. Is mine, perhaps what allows ancient Egypt to endure is not its stone, its gold, or its monumental structures, but the way it understood the world. The Egyptians did not live in a frantic race against time. They lived alongside time, as one lives alongside a river, slowly, steadily, without resistance. The Nile rose and fell. Day followed night. Life followed death. Everything moved in cycles, and within repetition came a sense of safety. In that world, humans were not separate from the cosmos. They were part of a greater order. Each stone placed in a pyramid was not merely construction, but participation in a sacred structure binding earth and sky. Each ritual was not only for the dead, but for the living reassurance that a path existed, that dissolution was not chaos, but ordered movement. This creates a feeling very different from modern anxiety. Where modern humans often fear uncertainty, ancient Egypt sought to give uncertainty form. They mapped the soul's journey. They named the gods. They recorded prayers so nothing would be forgotten. And so that civilization carries a unique stillness, the stillness of those who believed that the world, though vast, was structured. As you listen to Egypt through this slow narration, you may find you are no longer learning history. Instead, you are touching an ancient emotional layer, where humanity first asked, "Who are we?" within this long flow? And their answer was not fear but construction, not avoidance but preparation. This is why Egypt is so fitting to hear before sleep. Before sleep, the mind also stands at a small threshold between waking and dreaming, control and release. And ancient Egypt whispers, thresholds are not frightening. They are simply doors. If now you feel you do not need to understand anything more, if the pyramids become only a sense of weight, calm and stability, if time seems to slow slightly, then you are moving in harmony with the spirit of this civilization. Egypt does not invite you to become more alert. It invites you to stay longer with stillness. And as the night deepens, as later stories unfold of death, souls, gods, and deeply human things, you do not need to follow with reason. Let the unconscious walk first. For that is how ancient Egypt moved through thousands of years, unhurried, unlost, and never truly leaving humanity's dream. Is go to stays. Part 2. Death is not the end. If there is one thing that distinguishes ancient Egypt from most other civilizations, it is the way they did not turn away from death. While many cultures avoided it, feared it, or covered it in taboo, the Egyptians faced it directly, not with despair, but with patient preparation and reverence. For them, death was not a final punctuation. It was a doorway, and every doorway needed to be opened properly. The mummification process, lasting about 70 days, was not merely a technique of preservation. It was an extended ritual in which every gesture carried sacred meaning. The body was not seen as something to be discarded, but as the home to which the soul must return. Each layer of linen, each aromatic resin, each whispered prayer was meant to keep the bond between body and soul intact. Remarkably, the Egyptians did not consider the brain the center of thought. The brain was removed and discarded during mummification. The heart, however, was carefully preserved within the chest. The heart was believed to be the seat of memory, morality, and human essence. The heart knew right from wrong. The heart remembered the soul's journey, and the heart would face the final judgment. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, this reflects a profound symbolic truth within the human unconscious. Humans are not defined solely by rational thought, but by values, emotions, and moral choices. The heart in Egyptian ritual was not merely an organ, but an image of what Jung described as the center of personality. Death, then, was not erasure, but the moment when one's true nature was weighed. The weighing of the heart ceremony is one of ancient Egypt's most powerful images. In this ritual, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of the goddess Ma'at, symbol of truth, order, and cosmic justice. If the heart was lighter or balanced, the soul could proceed to eternal life. If it was heavy with wrongdoing, it would be devoured, ending existence. Notably, this was not an angry punishment. It resembled natural balance. There was no emotional judgment, no wrath. Only whether the soul remained in harmony with cosmic order. And this calm inevitability gives death in Egypt a quiet, necessary quality rather than panic or terror. To prepare for this journey, the deceased was given a refined spiritual armor. Amulets were placed precisely. Organs were entrusted to protective gods. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, oversaw mummification and guided the soul. Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, recorded the final verdict. Everything had a role. Every detail reduced human anxiety before the unknown. As you listen to these stories at night, you may notice something gentle. The Egyptians did not seek bodily immortality out of fear. They did so because they believed life extended beyond one lifetime. And that belief, when told, slowly, deeply soothes the modern mind, so often preoccupied with endings, loss, and unfinished living. Before sleep, the mind also stands at a threshold between control and release. And ancient Egypt whispers, to release does not mean to lose. It simply means to enter another state, quieter, safer, more ordered. If your breathing has slowed, if images of hearts, feathers, and gods dissolve into vague sensation, if fear of endings feels slightly softer, then you are touching the deepest spirit of this chapter. In Egypt's world, death was not darkness. It was a quiet night before a long journey. And as you close your eyes, you do not need to know where you are going. Only know that, like the ancient Egyptians believed, every doorway has guardians and no transition is chaotic. Perhaps the most comforting aspect of Egypt's view of death lies not in elaborate rituals, but in familiarity. Death was not a sudden rupture. It was spoken of, prepared for, accepted early. Egyptians lived knowing death would come, and thus it was never a shock. While alive, people prepared for their final journey. They commissioned coffins, chose amulets, wrote prayers to be read after they departed. Funerary texts were not meant to frighten but to guide, as if the soul confused in a new world could open familiar words and remember I was prepared for this moment. This contrasts deeply with modern anxiety, where death is often excluded from conversation, hidden, treated as unthinkable. But the unconscious, as Jung suggested, does not tolerate emptiness. Unnamed silence becomes vague fear. Egypt did the opposite. It filled that silence with symbols, rituals, and order, and fear softened into familiarity. The spiritual armor protected not only the dead but the living. Knowing there was a clear path beyond allowed the living to breathe more slowly. They did not despair. They trusted the soul was guided, weighed, placed correctly within the universe. Death did not sever connection. It transformed presence. Before sleep, our minds ask similar questions. If I let go, what happens? If I stop controlling, is it safe? And ancient Egypt answers softly, safety does not come from control but from deeper order. You do not need to understand mummification. You do not need to remember the gods' names. You do not need to picture the scales or the feather clearly. Just feel these civilizations have lived long lives alongside the truth of death and were not consumed by it. They softened it, woven it into a greater dream, the dream of continuation. If thoughts of endings feel less sharp, if vague anxiety quiets, if death feels distant, almost abstract, then you are moving in harmony with ancient Egypt's spirit. And like souls guided through gates beyond, you do not need to walk ahead alone. Later chapters will open gently about architecture, cosmos, and time, all designed to make the mind lighter, not heavier. For now, if your eyelids grow heavy, if words dissolve into sensation, let it happen. For the ancient Egyptians, and for your sleep tonight, to let go is not to lose, but to be guided very gently. Part 3. Great Architecture and the Ambition for Immortality. When human beings face death and no longer see it as an ending, another quiet question begins to arise. What then will remain? For the ancient Egyptians, the answer was not found in words, but in stone, in massive blocks of stone, stacked upon one another with a patience that seems almost unimaginable. Architecture for them was not merely for shelter, worship, or the display of power. Architecture was the way human beings left their form within the universe. The first pyramids appeared as a very clear declaration the power of the pharaoh did not belong only to the earthly realm. It was supported by the gods and by cosmic order. When a pyramid was raised, it was not simply a tomb. It was an axis connecting the ground directly to the sky, a path along which the king's soul would continue its journey after leaving the body. The shape of the pyramid, wide and stable at the base, narrowing as it rises, resembles a stone arrow pointing straight toward the heavens. Today, we are accustomed to the sandy gold color of the pyramids, but in the distant past, they were once covered in smooth white limestone, so bright that they reflected sunlight like enormous jewels. When the sun rose, the pyramids did not merely stand upon the earth, they seemed to dissolve into light, and when night fell, their forms blended into the star-filled sky, becoming part of the cosmic order to which the Egyptians believed they belonged. What is astonishing is that these structures were not placed randomly. They were aligned with extraordinary precision to the cardinal directions and to the stars. Not because the Egyptians wished to show technical mastery, but because they believed the universe had order and that human beings were only truly safe when they lived in harmony with that order. Architecture thus became a ritual frozen in stone, a prayer extended across millennia. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, structures such as pyramids symbolize a very ancient archetype within the human unconscious, the axis of the world. The connection between below and above, between the finite and the eternal. In every age, human beings seek to build their own sacred mountains. For Egypt, the pyramid was that mountain constructed not by nature, but by collective will. If pyramids were the path that carried the king's soul toward the sky, then temples were the dwelling places of the gods upon the earth. Egyptian temples were not built for large human gatherings. They were designed to become increasingly enclosed, deeper, darker, and quieter. Each step into a temple was a step away from ordinary life and closer to divine presence. People did not come to temples to speak, they came to lower themselves. The space within a temple was arranged like an inner journey, from light into darkness, from noise into silence, from the ego into release. And at the center, where only a few were permitted to enter, stood the statue of the god not meant to be seen but to be sensed. Architecture here did not serve the eyes, it served states of mind. Listening to these structures before sleep, you may recognize something familiar. The modern mind also longs for such order, a place where everything is set in its proper position, a structure strong enough to rest within. The Egyptians built with stone, and in this moment we are building with slow narration and listening. Egyptian architecture does not attempt to challenge nature. It mirrors nature in its purest form, enduring, cyclical, unhurried. And for that reason, it carries a quality deeply suited to sleep. The feeling that some things do not need to change, that there are forms stable enough to lean upon. If now the image of the pyramid has become only a silent mass in your mind, if the temple is no longer a physical place, but a deep, quiet sensation, if the starry sky feels a little closer, then you are moving in harmony with quiet. The spirit of this chapter. The Egyptians built for immortality, not because they feared disappearance, but because they believed life could continue within order. And that order, when spoken in a low voice, does not tighten the mind. It allows the mind to settle. The journey continues. But you do not need to follow closely. Simply allow those ancient stones to stand quietly within your mind, as they have stood for thousands of years, stable, silent, and safe enough for you to close your eyes. Perhaps what allows Egyptian architecture to touch such deep layers of the human mind is not its size, but the patience it represents. No Egyptian monument was built for a single lifetime. Pyramids took decades, even generations, to complete. Those who placed the first stone knew they would never see the finished structure, yet they built anyway, not for personal fame, but from the belief that they were participating in something greater than themselves. In this rhythm of life, time was not an enemy to be defeated. It was material. Each passing year brought the structure closer to its final form. There was no urgency, no pressure to finish quickly. And this attitude creates a feeling very different from the modern world where everything must be fast, efficient, immediate. Standing before a pyramid, Egyptians did not feel small in a negative sense. They felt correctly placed, a finite human contributing to an infinite structure. Architecture did not overwhelm the mind. It softened it like standing before a mountain and realizing you do not have to carry the whole world. Temples carried the same spirit. They were not built to impress. They were built to hold rhythm. Each day the same ritual, the same path inward, the same fading light. This repetition did not create boredom. It created safety. Like a steady breath, like a lullaby without words, allowing body and mind to synchronize. Before sleep, the human mind needs such a structure. Not one made of information, but of sensation. A familiar sequence, listening, softening, drifting. And Egyptian architecture, told at night, becomes an unexpected framework for this state. You do not need to remember how tall the pyramids were. You do not need to picture every corridor of a temple. Simply feel that there were people who trusted the order of the world so deeply that they built with stone, not to challenge time, but to live alongside it. If now your body feels a little heavier, if stone, light, and stars fade into gentle impressions, if you are no longer following each sentence, but only listening as one listens to a current, then Egyptian architecture has fulfilled its role, not in the desert, but within your mind. Those structures still stand, not because humans are immortal, but because they were built with acceptance that humans are not. And that acceptance is what makes them endure. Our journey will continue leaving stone to move into sky, into time, into eternal rhythm. But you do not need to travel with alertness. Simply allow those ancient structures to support your consciousness as they have supported human belief for thousands of years. Stable, silent, unhurried, and very suitable for rest. Part 4. The Sky, Time and Eternity. Once human beings had built structures strong enough to stand against wind, sand, and centuries, their gaze naturally lifted upward. Beyond the heavy stones of the earth, the ancient Egyptians looked to the sky not with fleeting curiosity, but with deep connection. The sky was not distant to them. It was part of daily life, a place where time was read, felt, and lived alongside. The Egyptian calendar did not begin with human reference points, but with the stars. Each new year was marked not by abstract numbers, but by the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. When Sirius appeared at dawn, Egyptians knew the Nile floods were approaching. Water would return, bringing silt life and the familiar rhythm of rebirth. Time, therefore, was not something counted. It was something that returned. In this worldview, time did not disappear as it passed. It turned, it repeated, it returned to itself. Egyptians distinguished clearly between two kinds of time. One eternal and unchanging, where the gods existed, and one cyclical, where humans lived, died, and were reborn. These two were not opposites. They intertwined, like breath inhale and exhale, light and dark, rising waters and retreating floods. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, how humans imagine time reflects the deepest state of the unconscious. Linear time, where everything moves only forward, often carries anxiety and fear of loss. Cyclical time, where things return in altered forms, brings a sense of safety. Ancient Egypt chose the second, and that choice created the civilization's distinctive calm. Pyramids and temples were not built merely to endure. They were built to position humanity within the universe. Every corridor, every axis, every orientation carried astronomical meaning. Architecture became a cosmic instrument, not mechanical but symbolic, reminding humans that they lived between sky and earth, between the finite and the eternal. Within such spaces, people did not feel chased by time. Instead, they felt as though they stood within it, like standing in a slow-moving river. No need to hurry, no need to run. Everything would arrive in its proper moment. And that feeling, light, quiet, reassuring, is precisely what the modern mind often lacks before sleep. The Egyptian night sky was not merely a backdrop for stars. It was a map of the soul. Egyptians believed that after judgment, the soul would travel across the sky, becoming a star and merging with eternal order. Death did not pull the soul into darkness. It lifted it upward, and the sky became a place of continuation rather than separation. Listening to this at night, you may notice your mind slowing not from exhaustion, but because there is no longer a need to measure. Time in this moment does not need to be managed. It only needs to be felt, as the Egyptians once did, watching stars rise, waiting for waters to return, living within the gentle repetition of the universe. If you no longer know how long you have been listening, if the idea of what time it is begins to blur, if the starry sky becomes only a vast, quiet sensation, then you are approaching the deepest spirit of this chapter. Ancient Egypt did not seek to defeat time. They befriended it. And when you allow yourself to do the same, even for a few minutes, before sleep time becomes gentler with you as well. Later chapters will guide us into writing art and the very human daily life of this civilization. But you do not need to follow with memory. Simply allow that ancient sky to settle lightly over your mind like a thin blanket of stars, slow, wide, and enough for you to close your eyes in peace. Perhaps what allowed Egyptians to live calmly within a vast and unpredictable world was their refusal to place themselves at the center of time. Humans were neither the beginning nor the destination. They were simply one rhythm within a long cosmic harmony. Understanding this softens the urgency to keep up, to achieve, to not miss out like mist dissolving in sunlight. The night sky did not feel empty to them. It felt enclosing. The stars were not distant lights, but old companions that existed long before humans arrived. To believe that a soul would become a star did not mean separation, but integration, returning to a larger, quieter community that required no effort. In such a rhythm, Egyptians did not rush to leave a mark. They did not measure worth by speed. Instead, they allowed time to inscribe their names into stone, into writing, into ritual repetition. Each year was not a step away from the past, but a return where nothing disappeared, only changed form. This contrasts with how many people experience time before sleep minds pulled into tomorrow, into unfinished tasks, into pressure. But listening to Egypt's sky offers another possibility. Time is not chasing you. It is flowing alongside you, slowly, without demand. Pyramids, temples, star calendars all speak the same quiet language. Everything has rhythm. No need to resist, no need to accelerate. Even eternity is not a straight line, but the gentle repetition of familiar cycles. If your breathing now feels more aligned, if thoughts of tomorrow soften, if time feels gentler in your awareness, then you are living for this moment, as the ancient Egyptians lived beneath their sky, not possessing, not challenging, only listening. And just as stars continue to appear and fade without needing recognition, your sleep does not need to succeed. It only needs to arrive when it arrives. And perhaps now, that moment is very near. Allow that ancient sky to widen within your mind. Allow time to return to its natural rhythm, unhurried, unmeasured, simply drifting very gently. Part 5. Writing, Art and Intelligence. When human beings began to fear that time might wash everything away, they turned to writing. But for the ancient Egyptians, writing was not merely a tool of memory. It was a way of existing, a means of preventing things from dissolving, of preventing humanity from being swallowed by forgetting. Writing was not neutral. Writing was ritual. Egyptian hieroglyphs resemble no writing system we commonly use today. Each symbol does not merely represent sound or meaning, but carries the soul of the thing it depicts. A bird carved into stone is not merely an image of a bird. It is the bird. A line of water does not simply signify water. It carries flow, life, and renewal. In this belief, writing does not describe the world it participates in it. To write, therefore, was to allow things to continue living. A name carved into stone would not die with the body. A prayer written down would continue to resonate even after the writer was gone. Writing became a bridge between moment and eternity. Perhaps this is why Egyptians carved words into tombs, temples, and statues, not for the living to read, but so that time itself could not erase them. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, writing and symbols are direct paths into the collective unconscious. Images repeated across generations do more than convey information. They shape how humans experience reality. For ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs were the language of the unconscious, concrete, visual, emotionally rich, and requiring no rational explanation. Egyptian art followed the same principle. Reliefs and statues were created according to strict rules. Human figures were drawn with faces in profile, eyes forward, torsos turned, not because Egyptians lacked observational skill, but because they sought to preserve essence rather than moment. Art did not aim to capture fleeting posture. It aimed to retain what was unchanging within humans and gods. Artists did not pursue personal expression. They pursued symbolic accuracy. If form was incorrect, essence would distort. And if essence distorted, life after death would not remain whole. Art, therefore, was not ego display, but sacred responsibility, maintaining cosmic order. Listening to this before sleep can feel strange yet comforting. In a modern world of constant change and temporary images, Egyptian art offers rare stability. It whispers that some forms do not need reinvention, that some symbols are already complete. And when the mind rests within such repetition, vigilance naturally softens. The Rosetta Stone stands as quiet testimony to this. When it was discovered, it did not merely decode a script, it allowed a civilization silent for millennia to speak again. Symbols once thought decorative revealed stories of gods, rituals, daily life, and deeply human beliefs. There is something gentle in this moment. Writing fulfilled exactly what Egyptians believed. It outlived the writer. It waited silently until someone patient enough came to listen. And like that, the stories you hear now do not need full understanding. They simply need to be present, like ancient symbols slowly finding their place. Before sleep, the unconscious does not work through logic. It works through images, sensations, symbols. Ancient Egypt speaks precisely this language. No urgency, no explanation, just presence. And that steady presence creates deep safety. If now writing is no longer writing, if images blur, if everything becomes a slow flow of sensation, then you are aligned with the spirit of this chapter. The Egyptians wrote to exist forever, and you in this moment need only exist lightly enough to sleep. As consciousness fades, those ancient symbols do not disappear. They remain quietly, as they have for thousands of years, guarding your sleep with the enduring stillness of time. Perhaps hieroglyphs touch such deep layers, not because they are ancient, but because they are unhurried. Each symbol was carved knowing it would remain long after the carver was gone. There was no haste in each mark, only a commitment to time. We do not need to speak quickly, only truthfully. Silence was not emptiness. It was space for meaning to spread. Walls filled with symbols were not meant for constant reading, but for passing by, sensing, and continuing life. Writing existed alongside living, never demanding attention, like a slow underlying rhythm preventing chaos. Art followed the same pattern, repeated poses, proportions, compositions. To modern eyes it may seem rigid, but to a mind seeking rest, repetition offers safety. No surprises, no rupture, everything in its place. Before sleep, the unconscious desires such a world, one without constant reaction, update, adaptation. A world stable enough for the nervous system to lower its guard. And Egyptian art, though thousands of years old, meets that need precisely. Deciphering hieroglyphs resembles falling asleep. Both require patience. Neither can be forced. Only when effort to understand immediately stops does meaning appear, or in sleep's case, rest arrives. If you are no longer tracking every sentence, if symbols blur into gentle lines, if you listen without analyzing, then you are exactly where Egyptian writing intended, present, without grasping. The Egyptians believed writing prevented the world from dissolving, and you now need not hold on to anything. Allow ancient symbols to drift through your mind, as they have drifted through thousands of years of history, quiet, enduring, never vanishing, remaining long enough for you to feel safe. And as consciousness closes, writing is no longer writing. It becomes a quiet underlying rhythm supporting your sleep with the ancient endurance of time. Part 6. The Everyday Life of the Ancient Egyptians. After all the colossal pyramids, the rituals surrounding death, the stars, and eternal symbols, there is something easily forgotten. The ancient Egyptians were also ordinary human beings. They woke up each morning, worked under the sun, talked, laughed, grew tired, loved, felt anger and tenderness just as we do. And it is precisely this very human daily life that formed the true ground upon which all greatness was built. Bread and beer were the foundation of Egyptian society. Not luxury foods, but simple things repeated day after day. Bread made from coarse grain, lightly fermented beer, enough to sustain the body, enough to bring a familiar warmth. They were present in every social class, from pyramid builders to nobles. And though they slowly wore down teeth over time, they remained symbols of daily life, of human continuity through each day, each season of rising and falling waters. Life was not always easy, but it followed a stable rhythm. Egyptians worked by season, rested according to the Nile's floods, lived within clear cycles. And this clarity created a deep sense of safety, something the modern mind often lacks. Before sleep, listening to a life lived with such steady rhythm allows consciousness to loosen, to stop constantly guarding the future. One striking aspect of ancient Egyptian society was the role of women. Women could own property, sign contracts, conduct business, and even initiate divorce. They did not exist only in the shadows of history, but appeared clearly in legal documents, letters, and poetry. This reveals a society where individuals were recognized as such, not entirely dissolved into power structures. From Carl Gustav Jung's perspective, such everyday details carry profound symbolic value. They show that the collective unconscious of a civilization did not revolve solely around gods and death, but also around relationships, emotions, and human bonds. A society capable of building pyramids while still making room for love, poetry, and play is one with a rich inner life. Cosmetics, perfume, and music were also essential parts of Egyptian life. Makeup was not merely for beauty, but for protection from the sun, from harmful forces, from invisible disorder. Fragrance was not only pleasant, but meant to soothe gods and spirits. Music was not only entertainment, but a way of holding rhythm for rituals, labor, and transitions between life and death. All of this makes Egyptian life feel close, easy to imagine, easy to empathize with. And this empathy dissolves the distance that history often creates. Hearing about people who lived thousands of years ago yet still loved, remembered, and played the mind naturally lowers its defenses. There is no need to study. There is only the feeling of listening to a familiar story. There were love poems written for beloved ones, games carved into stone to pass time, workers' villages where people lived together for life, passing skills from one generation to the next. There was laughter, fatigue, long afternoons. At its deepest level, ancient Egypt was not a museum. It was a life once lived. Before sleep, the mind does not need grand ideas. It needs reminding that humans in every era share the same basics, and if they could live, love, work, and rest in an uncertain world, then we too can allow ourselves to rest in this moment. If you are no longer thinking about pyramids, if images have softened into bread, beer, distant music, if Egypt is no longer a civilization but a very old afternoon, then you are moving in harmony with the spirit of this bare chapter. Stone statues remain only as traces. Daily life, in all its simplicity, is what truly carried humans across thousands of years. And like them, you do not need to do anything more now. Simply remain still and let the night do its work. Perhaps it is in these smallest details that ancient Egyptian life reveals its quiet endurance. Not in ceremonial moments, but in days nearly identical to one another. Mornings beginning with Nile sunlight, familiar footsteps on dirt paths, tasks repeated by hand until the body no longer needed to think. This repetition did not impoverish life. It created deep stability. When tomorrow resembles today, the mind need not remain constantly alert. And this is exactly what the nervous system needs to rest. The Egyptians, without naming it, built a society whose biological rhythm harmonized with its environment. Evenings after work ended, people gathered. In families, in courtyards by the receding river. They told stories, listened to music, drank light beer, played simple games drawn on the ground or stone. Entertainment was not separate from life. It flowed within it. This mirrors our own pre-sleep state. No climax, no intense stimulation. Only familiar activities that allow the mind to soften. Listening to these moments, you may no longer visualize clearly, but feel warmth and slowness, like remembering a quiet evening from your own past. Daily life was also where gentleness lived. Egyptian love poetry was simple about longing, waiting eyes, meeting footsteps approaching. No grand tragedy, only small human tremors. And these show that even among gods and rituals, Egyptians did not lose the ability to feel simple joy. From a Jungian perspective, these ordinary moments nourish the unconscious not with big ideas, but with belonging, being seen, living within shared rhythm. When this exists, humans need not strain to survive. And before sleep, this is exactly what the mind seeks, not feeling alone in time's flow. If history and imagination are no longer distinct, if ancient Egypt becomes a blurred picture of golden light, distant music, warm bread, if you listen without following each idea, then everyday life is reaching you not through knowledge, but through deep familiarity. Stone statues will remain still. Pyramids will continue to face sun and wind. But ordinary evenings, simple meals, gentle songs, these carried humans day by day, century by century. And like them, you need not be great now. You need not leave a mark. You only need to be human and allow yourself to rest very lightly, very quietly. Part 7. Gods, Animals, and Symbols. As we move deeper into ancient Egypt, it becomes clear this was not a world sharply divided between humans and gods, matter and spirit. Instead, boundaries were thin. Everything could become a symbol, and every symbol carried life. The gods were not distant. They were everywhere, in human form, animal form, colors, jewelry, and small objects carried daily. Egyptian gods rarely appeared fully human. They often had animal heads and human bodies, not because Egyptians confused humans and animals, but because they believed primal cosmic power expressed itself most clearly through instinct. Humans hesitate and reason. Animals act from pure essence. A god with the head of a falcon, jackal, or crocodile signified power not born of intellect. From Carl Gustav Jung's view, half-human, half-animal figures express deep layers of the collective unconscious, where instinct and consciousness meet. Jung believed humans cannot become whole through reason alone, but must integrate instinct. Egyptian gods were not frightening. They were ancient parts of humanity, honored rather than denied. Animals were not merely companions. They embodied cosmic forces. Cats symbolized protection and gentleness. Crocodiles represented the Nile's power, life-giving and destructive. Ibises symbolized wisdom and order. Animal mummification was not blind superstition, but belief that soul exists in all living forms. Nothing was entirely inanimate. A statue was not just stone. An amulet was not decoration. Colors were not merely aesthetic. Each held spiritual purpose. Blue symbolized sky and water rebirth. Green meant life. Red signified vitality and danger. Gold was sunlight and immortality. Jewelry and amulets were worn not for display, but to balance the soul. This symbolic world was not separate from daily life. Workers, mothers, children lived within it naturally without explanation. Symbols were not studied, they were lived. And this created a world that felt whole and seamless, like a dream where every detail connects. Before sleep, the mind works similarly through images, sensations, symbols. Listening to animal-headed gods, sacred colors, revered creatures, the unconscious does not need to understand. It recognizes an ancient language older than words. In this language, there is no strict right or wrong, only place. Everything belongs. Even chaos has form. Even fear has a name and guardianship. Thus, the Egyptian world does not strain the mind. It embraces all states rather than excluding them. If you no longer picture each god clearly, if images merge into vague sensation, if you listen without needing understanding, then the symbolic world is working not through consciousness, but through quiet depth. The Egyptians did not live in a lifeless world. They lived in a world full of soul. And as you listen before sleep, you need not believe in gods nor understand symbols. Only allow the mind to remember everything has its place, and so do you. Very quiet, very deep, and safe enough to close your eyes. Perhaps what makes Egypt's sacred world gentle is that it demands no choice, no belief or disbelief, no analysis. Gods, animals, symbols simply exist, like wind, water, night. Humans lived within meaning, not outside it. A cat crossing a courtyard was protection. A crocodile in the river was danger and necessity. No harsh judgment, only acceptance of forces required for order. Modern humans often suppress instinct. Egypt honored it, named it, placed it in cosmic order. And when a part of the psyche is acknowledged and symbolized, it becomes less dangerous. It no longer intrudes as nameless fear. Amulets, colors, jewelry became anchors for the mind. They did not need scientific truth, only the feeling of safety, and they provided that for millennia. Before sleep, the unconscious seeks such anchors, a sense that the world is not pure chaos, that even in darkness, familiar forms remain. If Egypt now feels like a wide enclosing presence, if you feel held by invisible order, then this sacred world is doing its work through steady presence. You need not take it literally. Only sense that some ways of living make humans less lonely within their own minds. Gods fade into feeling. Animals lose names. Symbols dissolve into sensation. And in that dissolving, consciousness can rest slowly, deeply, and gently drift into sleep. Part 8. Power, War, and Empire. Hearing of power and empire, war often tightens the modern mind. But in ancient Egypt, power was not only violence or conquest. It was order, arrangement, preventing chaos. At its center stood the pharaoh, king, god, and human, bearing the universe's weight. The pharaoh was not merely a ruler, but the living embodiment of Ma'at, cosmic balance and justice. His duty was not privilege, but burden. If floods failed or society unraveled, responsibility fell to him. In Jungian terms, the god-king is an ancient archetype, the father, protector, and lawgiver. Pharaoh needed not be perfect, as a man only stable as a symbol. War was often framed as restoring balance. Victories carved into stone reassured the collective mind order remained. Administration, taxes, records, grain stores formed society's heartbeat, creating predictability and easing anxiety. Egypt practiced diplomacy as well as war. Peace treaties showed mature understanding. Power lies also in stopping. Such restraint comforts the human mind deeply. Before sleep, the mind longs for the feeling that someone stands guard. Hearing of Pharaoh as protector, consciousness releases the burden of control. If power becomes stability, if war fades into distance, then you are touching this chapter's depth. Egypt honored, maintained order, not chaos. And now you need not guard your life's order. You may hand over that watch. Let power soften into safety. Let war sleep in history. And tonight, rest in a world quietly guarded. Power did not belong to individuals, but to roles. Like the Nile, it flowed on. Order was anchored in ritual, stone, symbol, not emotion. Repetition in reliefs reassured stability. Chaos was flattened into symbol, so fear would not dominate imagination. Administration became society's nervous system. Planning reduced anxiety. Before sleep, what troubles us most is the sense that tomorrow is unguarded. Egypt reminds us, humans have built safety before. If power no longer feels heavy, if empire becomes a wide, steady structure, then you are aligned with this chapter. Egypt slept not because danger was absent, but because danger was ordered. And now you need not carry power. You may set down every role, hand control to the night, and let sleep arrive like an ancient empire, quietly standing in the dark. Part 9. Mysteries yet to be deciphered. Some civilizations leave us with answers. Ancient Egypt leaves us with spaces. And it is precisely these spaces, rather than pyramids or stone statues, that allow this civilization to continue living in the human mind. Beneath desert sand, beneath stone slabs that seem to have already said everything, there remain unopened. Chambers unwalked, corridors, cities submerged beneath water temples, buried deep under mud and time. Not because humanity lacks intelligence to uncover them, but perhaps because part of history does not wish to be awakened. The idea of secret chambers within pyramids, evokes a very particular feeling, not fear, but waiting. Waiting not to open, but to preserve. In a modern world where everything is illuminated, analyzed, and forced to yield explanations, ancient Egypt stands as a gentle reminder. Not everything needs to be understood immediately. Sunken cities and underwater temples, places known to exist yet touched only through blurred images and speculation, feel very much like the unconscious. We know they are there. We sense their weight. But we do not enter them with the harsh light of consciousness. We merely circle their edges enough to know there is more beneath. Tomb curses, inexplicable carvings, symbols that fit no familiar system. None need to be true or false. They exist as whispered stories, enough to soothe imagination, not enough to provoke panic. And this half-known, half-unknown quality prevents the mind from becoming overloaded. The land of Punt, spoken of by the Egyptians as a distant place of fragrance and abundance, has never been precisely located. It exists somewhere between map and dream, and perhaps its importance lies not in geography, but in psychology, a place for hope, orientation, and belief that goodness exists beyond reach. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, unresolved mysteries play an essential role in psychological life. Jung suggested that the unconscious does not require everything to be brought into light. On the contrary, part of mental health lies in allowing the unknown to exist. When humans try to explain everything, the mind becomes rigid. When we accept that some things will remain in shadow, the mind begins to relax. Ancient Egypt quite naturally practiced this acceptance. They did not attempt to seal every mystery into definition. They let them rest, protected by sand, water, and time. And because of this, Egyptian history never truly ends. It continues to whisper, to invite, to live within imagination. Before sleep, the mind works in the same way. It does not need more data. It needs space. Egyptian mysteries told slowly and softly do not stimulate analysis. They create a safe blur where consciousness can retreat and the unconscious may speak. If you are no longer trying to picture where the chamber lies, if curses feel distant, if Egypt dissolves into warm sand covering all questions, then this chapter is doing its work. Ancient Egypt does not ask us to understand them. They invite us to stay with what is not understood. And in this moment, you do not need to answer anything in your life. No decoding, no closure. Let questions sleep. Let history whisper alone. And as consciousness withdraws, you may close your eyes, knowing that some things are allowed to remain beneath the sand, very still, very deep and harmless to you. Perhaps the most profound legacy of ancient Egypt is not what has been uncovered, but what remains untouched. In the human psyche, the unknown holds a quiet allure. When held gently, it does not cause anxiety, but creates spaciousness, like gazing at the night sky without counting stars. Secret chambers, whether real or imagined, function as architectural pauses. They remind us that even the most calculated structures leave room for the immeasurable. This mirrors the mind itself. No matter how much consciousness controls the unconscious, retains private rooms of memory, emotion, and symbol. Tomb curses retold across generations gradually lose their menace. They become boundary stories, urging slowness, care, and respect for the past. Psychologically, they protect sacred space from hurried intrusion. Inexplicable carvings serve a similar role. Their value lies in refusing full understanding. This refusal allows the mind to remain suspended, light, gentle, ideal for the moments before sleep. Ancient Egypt seemed to know that if everything were clear, humans would have no room to dream. Their history is woven with clarity and haze alike. Like a beautiful dream, you do not need details, only the feeling of having passed through something old, deep, and calm. Before sleep, the unconscious seeks permission not to know. Listening to unresolved mysteries reminds the mind that not all questions require answers now. Some may be set down or never returned to. If you no longer feel the need to follow, if Egypt feels vast like moonlit desert, if mystery simply exists without pulling, then you have arrived where this chapter intended. Ancient Egypt did not close its history. They let it sleep with time, and you may do the same with what remains unclear in your life. No solutions, no conclusions. Let it rest, covered by sand, held by darkness. Tonight you do not need to understand anything more. Only rest slowly, deeply, and safely. Part 10. Egypt, the dream of eternity. As the journey through ancient Egypt nears its end, what remains is not a sharp image of pyramids, nor a list of gods or unresolved mysteries. What remains is a slow, deep feeling like standing before the desert at dusk, where edges soften and time no longer urges forward. Egypt, after all, was not only gold and stone, not only monuments defying time. Egypt was people who lived, believed, loved, feared, and dreamed. Their dreams were not written as fleeting promises, but carved into stone script, ritual, and repeated rhythm across millennia. And through repetition, dream became permanence. The Egyptians did not fight time with haste. They did not seek to defeat it through speed. They moved so slowly that time itself seemed to wait. Each stone placed spoke not to the present, but to the future. Each symbol carved was not meant to be understood immediately, but felt perhaps centuries later. From Jung's perspective, the longing for eternity is not about living forever physically, but about not being erased from meaning. Humans fear forgetting more than death. Egypt answered this fear through structure, collective memory, where each generation feels part of something larger. Egyptian monuments challenge time not only by standing, but by evoking, feeling smallness, reverence, stillness. Standing before pyramids, modern humans fall silent, not from awe alone, but because something ancient touches within a rhythm of endurance the unconscious recognizes. This rhythm mirrors deep sleep. Thoughts slow, control loosens. Time ceases measurement and becomes gentle continuation. Egypt is not history to study, but a state to enter. Now, as the story closes, you need remember nothing. No images must remain clear. Egypt leaves only a soft echo like wind on sand, moonlight on the Nile imagined. If you feel yourself drifting, if details dissolve into sensation, if story and dream blur, then you are exactly where this chapter leads. Ancient Egypt completed its dream not to live forever as event, but to exist as enduring feeling. You need carry nothing more. No further understanding. No more thought. Let pyramids stand watch over your sleep. Let time slow as it once did there. Close your eyes. Release. And let sleep arrive very gently, very deeply, like an ancient dream still whispering in the dark. Perhaps the strangest thing about ancient Egypt is that after so many stories and layers, we carry no heavy conclusion. There is no urge to understand it all, only a settling like sitting long by a river until you no longer track each ripple. Egypt taught a way of being opposite to modern urgency. Meaning accumulates slowly through repetition, ritual, and constancy. This constancy becomes endurance, not immortality by avoiding death, but by not being washed away. Psychologically, this mirrors the state sought before sleep, not stimulation, but the sense that everything is in its place. Consciousness retreats. The unconscious, older and deeper, works quietly. Ancient Egypt becomes humanity's long dream. Like all beautiful dreams, details fade but feeling remains. If thoughts slow, if attention no longer cues, if the story becomes quiet behind your eyelids, then Egypt has brought you where it intended. Not for research, but for rest. Pyramids remain without memory. Gods remain without belief. Time flows without watching. And you may let go. Release consciousness. Release understanding. Release this story. Let Egypt continue dreaming eternity and let you drift into your own sleep. Very light, very deep, very safe. Part 11. When colors also have soul. Some civilizations see the world through form. Ancient Egypt saw it through color. Not color for decoration or distinction, but color as a quiet life force touching humans before consciousness names it. For Egyptians, seeing color was never neutral. It was a meeting between human and divine sensation and meaning, visible and untouchable. They believed color had soul, not metaphorically but directly. Color participated in cosmic order. Painted walls, colored amulets, worn garments worked on deep levels like silent spiritual protection. Blue was not simply beautiful. It was sky without limit. Nile water, sustaining life, endless rebirth. To see blue was to see continuation. Hence, blue stones and pigments carried protection like carrying a fragment of sky. Red carried blood, fire, moving life, but also danger and chaos. Egyptians neither avoided nor worshipped red. They placed it correctly. Red acknowledged that life includes risk and order, requires its opposite. Gold, the sun's color, belonged to gods, not for brilliance but for incorruptibility. Gold does not tarnish. For Egyptians, this meant immortality. Gold-covered statues and masks spoke not of wealth but timelessness. Colors were always paired with feeling. Blue soothed, red alerted, gold solemnized. Feeling came before thought. Thus, color spoke directly to the unconscious. From Jung's view, the unconscious communicates through image and emotion, not abstraction. Color is among the oldest pathways to the psyche. Egypt's color system shaped collective emotion across millennia. They did not explain color, they lived with it. Children grew among sacred hues. Adults wore protective colors. The dead were guided by color. Color was absorbed like dusk light, felt without thought. Before sleep, the mind returns to this state. It does not reason, it feels. Listening to Egyptian colors, you need not remember meanings. Let sensation spread soft, warm, deep, like seeing color behind closed eyes. If colors lose boundaries, if blue, red, gold blend into gentle ground, if story becomes state, then this chapter has done its work. Egypt turned seeing into ritual. And now you need see nothing. Let color settle into darkness. Let protection surround you. And let sleep arrive like a very old color, very familiar, always present when eyes close. Perhaps what makes Egypt's color system unique is not meaning, but daily living with color as with breath. Color stabilized emotion, quietly shaping inner climate. In desert sun and cold nights, color bridged environment and safety. Color comforted, warned, supported, protected, just as the unconscious prefers. It needs signals, not words. Color is the most primal signal. Jungian thought recognizes that repeated sensory environments shape inner climate. Egypt created psychological stability lasting millennia. Before sleep, we seek the same. Dim lights, soft hues. The body knows safety. Egypt did this for life itself. If you no longer try to remember meanings, if everything becomes a soft background, if you feel gently wrapped, then this chapter has left what it intended. Egypt used color not to impress, but to prevent inner chaos. Now you need not understand color. Let night hold its own shade, deep, soft, still. Close your eyes. Let color dissolve into sensation, and let sleep come like a silent ritual, requiring nothing from you. Part 12. The Sounds of the Ancient World. Before human beings learned to record history through writing, they already knew how to preserve the world through sound. A drumbeat, echoing a harp string, gently vibrating a breath from a flute released into the air. All of these existed before consciousness had time to name them. In ancient Egypt, sound did not come after thought. It was the first bridge between human beings and what lay beyond their reach. Music in Egypt was not created to impress or to express individuality. It did not point outward. It turned inward. Egyptians believed that sound could reach the gods not through spoken pleas, but through the right rhythm. When a melody rose within a temple, it was not a performance. It was an attunement aligning human beings and the invisible world to the same frequency. Harps, flutes, drums, instruments, simple in form yet profound in effect, appeared in every important moment of life: festivals, rituals, and funerals. Sound did not distinguish between joy and sorrow. It served one purpose: only to keep the soul from losing its rhythm. When joy arose, music kept it from spilling into chaos. When grief appeared, music prevented it from becoming an abyss. In funerary rites, sound held a particularly gentle role. It was not meant to banish death, but to guide the soul. The rhythm was steady, slow, like a heartbeat, gradually settling. There was no urgency, no climax, only patient presence, a quiet assurance you are not going alone. Some melodies were believed to have healing power, not because they were magical, but because they returned body and mind to their natural rhythm. When sound becomes, even breath follows. When breath steadies, a sense of safety emerges. And when safety is present, self-healing begins. Egyptians did not need scientific language for this. They felt it through the body. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, music is one of the most direct pathways into the unconscious. It requires no translation, no analysis. It reaches the deep layers where emotion forms before becoming thought. When a civilization uses sound as ritual, it reveals an understanding that the mind is not soothed by logic, but by rhythm. Sound in ancient Egypt did not attempt to overpower silence. It lived alongside it. Between notes, there was space. Between drum beats, there was rest. And it is within these pauses that the soul could descend, as a bird needs the open air between wing beats to glide. Before sleep, the human mind searches for these same pauses. It does not need more information. It needs a steady rhythm to lean into. When hearing of ancient sounds, even through words alone, the unconscious recognizes their familiar structure: slow, repetitive, requiring no response. If you no longer picture the instruments clearly, if sound has become only a gentle vibration in the chest, if thought begins to drift with an invisible rhythm, then this part is doing its work. Ancient Egypt did not use music to awaken. They used music to soothe. And in this moment, you do not need to listen to anything more. No clear melody, no beating drum. Simply allow the quiet of the night to carry its own rhythm, a very old rhythm, a very familiar one. Let the breath slow. Let the mind float on this wordless cadence, and allow sleep to arrive like a gentle wind that once drew humans and gods closer together. Perhaps what made sound in the ancient world so remarkable was that it never demanded attention. It did not ask to be listened to closely. Egyptian music existed as a parallel current within life, weaving through moments without disturbing them. Like flowing water at night, unseen, untracked, yet deeply missed when absent. In temples, sound was often soft, never overwhelming the space. Slow drum beats did not stir intense emotion, but kept time itself flowing evenly. When time flows evenly, fear of sudden change loosens its grip. And this feeling that life's rhythm is being held is one of the deepest forms of comfort. In daily life, music blended with labor. People worked while singing, moving within familiar rhythms. Sound became an invisible foundation, allowing the body to relax without constant adjustment. This mirrors the state we enter before sleep: brushing teeth, folding blankets, turning off lights, familiar rhythms requiring no thought. Sound also served as a bridge to memory. A melody could return the soul to distant moments, not through images, but through feeling. Egyptians understood this. In funerals, music did not erase pain, but prevented memory from breaking. For a brief moment, the living and the dead shared a single rhythm, enough to soften loss. Before sleep, the mind also seeks to reconnect the fragments of the day. It does not do this with words, but with rhythm, breath slowing, heart steadying, thoughts thinning. Hearing of ancient sounds, the unconscious recognizes a familiar structure. Everything is moving toward rest. If you no longer hear the story as a sequence of ideas, if words have become a steady murmur, like distant rain, if you cannot tell whether you are listening or dreaming, then you have reached the place this part was meant to guide you. Ancient Egypt used sound to keep the world from falling into frightening silence and from collapsing into chaotic noise, a middle space where humans could breathe alongside the universe. And now you need not listen to anything more. No music, no words. Let the night shape its own rhythm. Let silence become not emptiness, but a very light blanket settling over your mind. Allow the breath to slow. Allow sound to dissolve into quiet. And let sleep arrive softly, deeply, like an ancient melody no one needs to remember the name of. Part 13. Ordinary things, deeply human. After. Pyramids reaching toward the sky. Gods clothed in symbol and rituals devoted to eternity. Ancient Egypt reveals itself in a very different place, where human beings touch one another through small emotions. No massive stones, no power or mystery, only subtle vibrations of everyday life. And precisely because of this profoundly human, the Egyptians wrote love poetry. Not to create masterpieces, but to carry feelings, longing, waiting, jealousy, hope. Gentle words appear alongside genuine restlessness. They named the beloved, wished for reunion, worried when familiar footsteps did not appear. These emotions are not so different from ours. The difference is that they did not hide them. In Egyptian love poetry, love is not a grand tragedy. It is a natural part of life, like flowing water or rising sunlight. Sometimes tender, sometimes uncertain, but always present. And when modern listeners hear these voices, the mind relaxes, recognizing we are not alone in these deeply human feelings. Beyond poetry, there were games, laughter, and beer shared beneath palm shade. Egyptians played to pass time, to laugh together, to release fatigue after long days. They did not live in constant ritual. They knew how to rest and enjoy themselves. This reveals a civilization that did not only look skyward, but also grounded itself fully in the human body. Remarkably, even in tombs, places dedicated to death and eternity, Egyptians painted scenes of rest, meals, and play, not to deny death, but to say life is worth carrying forward. These images are not sorrowful. They are calm, a reminder that joy is not something to abandon, but something essential. From Jung's perspective, ordinary expressions such as love, play, and gentleness are where the unconscious is nourished. Jung believed that if humans live only through grand roles, heroes, rulers, martyrs, while neglecting small feelings, the psyche becomes rigid. A civilization endures not only through monuments but through allowing softness. Seen this way, ancient Egypt was not distant or cold. They allowed people to love, grieve, rejoice, play, and to bring all of it into both life and death. There was no harsh division. Everything flowed together just as emotions flow into the unconscious before sleep. Before sleeping, the mind does not need grand ideas. It needs reassurance that its feelings are valid. That longing is not weakness. That hope is not error. Hearing of Egyptians who loved, laughed, and played as we do, the mind lowers its defenses. There is no need to study history, only to feel. If you can no longer tell ancient story from personal memory, if Egypt dissolves into a quiet afternoon with distant laughter, if your heart softens without knowing why, then this part is touching you as intended. Ancient Egypt was not great only because of what it built. It was great because it allowed itself to be human. And in this moment, you do not need to be strong or perfect. You only need to be yourself with all your small emotions. Let these ordinary things lull you into sleep. Very light, very slow, very safe. Perhaps what makes these everyday details so moving is that they never tried to be grand. They were not created to be admired, but to be lived. A love poem need not last millennia to matter. A beer shared beneath palm shade need not be carved into stone. Yet because these moments truly existed, simple, sincere, the civilization gained depth. Egyptians did not live as if every day were ritual. They grew tired. They rested. They needed laughter to balance labor and thoughts of death. In games and shared laughter, people return to their bodies not as cosmic beings, but as creatures needing joy. This becomes especially clear in tomb imagery. Even where eternity reigns, scenes of rest and play appear. Not denial of death, but trust that life remains worthy of tenderness. Death did not erase the need for gentleness. At a deep psychological level, this offers a quiet message: you do not need to abandon your humanity to be right. In fact, it is precisely this humanity that needs protection. And before sleep, that is what the mind longs to hear most. That ordinary feelings do not make us weak. If you find yourself softened by small stories, if images fade, leaving warmth, if analysis gives way to listening, then your mind is entering the rhythm of rest. Ancient Egypt endured not only through stone and gold, but because it never forgot how to be human. And now you do not need to be anyone else. No roles, no goals. Just allow these ordinary things, love, laughter, gentleness, to gently close the long day. Let the body loosen, let the mind stop comparing, and allow sleep to arrive like a familiar embrace, very old, very human, needed in every age. Part 14. The Quiet Keepers of Order. After the pharaohs, the temples and the radiant symbols, ancient Egypt was also sustained by another layer of people. Those who did not stand at the center of attention, yet kept the world from falling. Out of rhythm. They were priests, physicians, and scribes. They did not rule. They did not conquer. They did not leave behind famous names. And yet they were the steady breath that allowed the civilization to continue. Egyptian priests were not only people of prayer. They were patient observers of the world. They observed the sky to understand the rhythm of the stars. They observed the body in order to heal it. They observed rituals to ensure that order was not disturbed. For them, there was no rigid division between spirituality and science. Prayer and observation were two sides of the same attitude, listening to the world rather than imposing upon it. Egyptian physicians healed not only with herbs, but with regularity. They cleaned wounds, applied bandages, spoke prayers, and recorded outcomes. There was no rush, no promise of instant recovery, only a repeated process, day after day. And it was precisely this repetition that created a sense of safety for the patient, the feeling of being cared for within a stable order. The scribes were perhaps the quietest figures of ancient Egypt. They sat for hours recording grain quantities, inventories, rituals, and small events. Their work carried little emotion, yet because of that it prevented collective emotion from overflowing. When everything was written down, the world became trackable. And when the world could be tracked, anxiety softened. Silence ran through the lives of these people. Not forced silence, but silence born from having no need to speak too much. Everything had its order. Every ritual had its rhythm. Each day began and ended in familiar ways, like meditation without naming it, like meditation woven directly into daily life. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, repetitive and structured rhythms play a crucial role in stabilizing the unconscious. Jung believed the human mind needs small rituals to avoid being pulled into chaos. In this sense, Egyptian priests and scribes created a collective ritual that lasted for millennia. What is striking is that they did not need to understand the entire universe to live in harmony with it. They simply needed to do their part each day, quietly, carefully, and consistently. This humility created a durable strength. No spectacle, no drama, but enough to keep the world from slipping off course. Before sleep, the human mind longs for a similar state. Not grand ideas, not emotional intensity, but the sense that everything is in its proper place. When we hear of people who lived through repetition, silence, and care, the unconscious recognizes a familiar rhythm, the rhythm of safety. If you no longer remember every detail, if the story has become a steady flow, if your breath slows with the cadence of the narration, then you have arrived where this part was meant to lead you. Ancient Egypt was not preserved only by kings and gods. It was preserved by very quiet people, and in this moment you do not need to do anything more. No solving, no thinking. Just allow the rhythm of life to slow. Let silence become shelter, and allow sleep to arrive like a very old ritual, very steady and very safe. Perhaps what made these quiet people so essential was that they did not seek great change. They did not live to create turning points. They lived to keep what already existed from breaking apart. In a world where the Nile could shift its course, where weather and harvests were never fully predictable, the consistency of priests, physicians, and scribes became a deep psychological anchor. Each morning began almost exactly the same: cleansing the body, preparing the space, performing rituals in proper sequence, observing, recording, ending the day in silence. Nothing dramatic. Yet this lack of drama created stability. When a person knows exactly what they will do each day, the mind does not have to worry constantly about what comes next. And that is a rare form of freedom. When a scribe sat down with a wooden tablet and reed pen, they did not think they were writing history. They were simply doing what needed to be done. And yet that unassuming attitude allowed history to endure. Jung emphasized that the unconscious is stabilized not by grand ideals but by repeated symbolic actions. Writing in this sense was a ritual that kept the world remembered in the right way. Cleanliness also carried meaning beyond hygiene. It symbolized keeping the boundary between chaos and order intact. Cleaning spaces, tools, and bodies was a way of sending a message to the unconscious: everything is still under care. Not control through force, but control through patience. This rhythm closely resembles meditation, though it did not need to be named as such. There was no goal of enlightenment, no effort to become better, only being present, repeating a familiar task, allowing the mind to settle. And this state spread across society, creating a civilization capable of enduring without tearing itself apart. Before sleep, the mind also needs such a structure. Not thoughts of the future, not processing the past, just the feeling that someone somewhere is keeping the world running. Hearing of the quiet people of ancient Egypt, the unconscious realizes it does not always need to be on the front line. It can step back, rest, and trust. If you feel you no longer need to follow the story, if the narration has become a steady rhythm like slow footsteps, if consciousness begins to fade, making room for calm, then this is where this part comes to rest. Ancient Egypt was not held together only by great forces. It was held together by very small habits practiced every day. And in this moment, you can do the same. No need to change anything, no need to resolve anything. Simply allow life's rhythm to slow. Let silence do its work. And let sleep arrive like a nameless ritual. Very steady, very quiet, asking nothing of you. Part 15. Egypt and the Sleep of Time. When all the fort, stories of ancient Egypt, gradually settle, what remains is not a list of events, but the way they lived with time, not resisting it, not running from it, not trying to outrun it through speed. Ancient Egyptians lived as though time were a quiet companion, always present, never rushing, never needing to be defeated. In their world, time was not measured by urgency. It was felt through repetition. The sun rose and set. The Nile rose and fell. Seasons of planting came and went. And human beings, instead of fearing the passage, learned to move with the rhythm. When life aligns with time, the mind no longer needs to tense itself in defense. They did not fear aging. They did not panic before death, not because they felt no grief, but because they believed nothing truly disappears. Everything simply changes form. Time in this view was not a thief, but a keeper of memory. Stone, writing, statues, all were not attempts to challenge time through pride, but to merge with time through patience. A stone was placed not to exist forever as an individual, but as part of a larger flow. Words were carved not to be read immediately, but simply to remain, for anyone slow enough to pause. From Jung's perspective, collective memory does not reside in recalling every detail, but in the persistence of feeling after images have faded. Jung believed enduring civilizations are those that place themselves in the depth of time rather than striving to shine briefly. Ancient Egypt did this not through theory, but through lived structure. Within that structure, time resembled a quiet river, not loud, not violent. It flowed, and humans flowed with it. No need to swim faster, no need to rise above, only to float, trusting the current, not to drown but to carry. Before sleep, the human mind longs for the same sensation, not control over time, but to be carried by it. Hearing of a civilization that lived for thousands of years without panic, the unconscious realizes there are ways of existing that do not require haste. There are lives that do not need to finish everything in a single day. If you are no longer thinking about tomorrow, if the past feels lighter, if time has become a soft background behind thought, then you have arrived where this part intends to bring you. Ancient Egypt allowed time to do its work. They did not cling. They did not resist. And in this moment, you can do the same. There is no need to hold on to anything. No need to chase anything. Let today close. Let memory settle, not disappear, simply rest. Time is still there, very quiet, very patient, and you may close your eyes, letting sleep arrive like an ancient river that once lulled an entire civilization into a long dream of eternity. Perhaps the most profound aspect of how Egyptians faced time was that they did not place themselves at its center. Humans came and went, yet order continued. There was no tragedy in this, only calm acceptance. When people do not try to claim time for themselves, time grows lighter, like water that does not need to be damned to matter. Pyramids, statues, inscriptions were not declarations of "we will not disappear." They were a quieter statement: we accept change, but not total erasure. Memory, when given durable form, no longer burdens the mind. It becomes a foundation for rest. In Jungian psychology, memory does not need to remain at the surface of consciousness. Healthy memory is memory that can descend to deeper layers, where it no longer hurts or demands constant attention. Ancient Egypt quite naturally did this with its entire civilization. Memory lived in stone images, rituals, so people did not have to carry it every day. That is why their lives were not haunted by the passing of time. They did not ask, "How much time do we have left?" They asked, "Are we in rhythm?" And when the rhythm was right, time ceased to be pressure. It became space, wide, deep, sufficient. Before sleep, the mind also needs that space. Not more hours, not more plans, but the feeling that things can continue without one's vigilance. Hearing of a civilization that lived so long without fear of time, the unconscious remembers something essential: you do not need to guard your existence all night. If your awareness is fading now, if time is no longer felt through clocks, if this story dissolves into a very quiet background, then this is where this part wishes to remain. Ancient Egypt allowed time to sleep. They did not wake it with anxiety. They did not chase it with ambition. And now you can do the same. Let what needs remembering rest. Let what is unfinished be set down. Time will not leave. It stays very patient. And you may close your eyes, allowing sleep to come not as escape, but as deep trust. Trust that tomorrow will arrive. Trust that memory remains. Trust that you do not need to keep everything awake. Just rest, very slowly, very deeply, as Egypt once did for thousands of years. As the story reaches this point, perhaps you are no longer listening with your ears. Images have faded. Details no longer line up. What remains is a very light sensation, like fine sand slipping through fingers. Ancient Egypt, after all, is not a civilization meant to be remembered through timelines. It is more like a long dream of humanity, where people learn to live with death, with time, with what cannot be controlled, without panic. The pyramids were not built to display power. They were built to stand still, to remind us that some things do not need speed to endure. Rituals were not meant as superstition. They were meant to calm the mind, to help people feel properly placed within a larger order. And ordinary people, loving, grieving, tired, laughing, resting, they were the true heartbeat of that civilization. From Jung's perspective, ancient stories endure not because they are true, but because they touch the deepest layers of the human soul. Egypt still whispers to us today because our fears are not so different from theirs. We fear being forgotten. We fear time moving too quickly. We long for something to remain when we are tired and close our eyes. And perhaps that is why you are here now. Not to learn more, not to remember more, but to be allowed to let go. If your eyelids feel heavier, if your breath has slowed, if thoughts no longer line up for attention, then everything is unfolding as it should. You do not need to try to sleep. Sleep does not come from effort. It comes when the mind feels safe enough to rest. Let these ancient stories do their work. Let time do its work. And let your body, very wise, find its own way into sleep. Today has been enough. You do not need to carry it into the night. Before we truly part, I want to say one very small, very gentle thing. If these slow stories help you breathe a little easier, if your mind feels less tense before sleep, if you wish for more nights lulled by history, psychology, and quiet, please subscribe to the Stories for Sleep channel. Your subscription does not only help sustain the channel, it is also a way of reminding yourself, I deserve to rest. Here, there is no noise, no pressure, only stories told slowly enough for the mind to loosen its grip. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for giving yourself a moment of stillness. Now, let the screen fade. Let sound become background. Let sleep arrive when it wishes. Wishing you a peaceful night. Sleep well.